Welcome back with my very special guest this week, attorney, actor, and producer Robert Sciglimpaglia. Robert, how are you?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Good, good. I'm glad I was able to get your name pronounced correctly. I'm sure you get that with, other podcasts you do and maybe even other meetings. So
Oh, of
I
course.
assume that's Italian.
Yes, it's
Nice,
Italian.
nice. Awesome. So I'm excited to have this chat with you because out of all the podcasts that I've done, I've never really talked about entertainment law or the legal side of the industry. But I am curious. So which came first, your acting or your law career?
Law career came first. Um, I was a DJ back in college, so wasn't quite acting, but a little bit in the entertainment world back then. And then I became a lawyer, and then I started acting maybe when I was practicing about 10 years or so. So that's the order of events.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, and that's what's interesting too, especially with those that have a successful career and then want to get into film. I actually recently talked with a gentleman who's worked in finance for 20 years, and then he, out of the blue, became a producer. So it's almost like the business calls out to you in a way, like it pulls you in. Uh, what was it that made you want to practice law in the first place?
I mean, I still love to practice law. I started out in computer science when I was going to college, and I learned quickly that I don't like numbers. So I switched over. I took some contract law, constitution law classes, and I really liked it. So I decided to switch over to law. I just really I like the realness of it. You know, it's law is very real. You're dealing with real life situations. Good, bad, ugly. I like that part of it. It's very practical. So um, that's what drew me to the law, and then to be able to help people, that's a bonus, of course. Um, the law, the legal system it's really about property and money. Really, that's what it's about. But you're helping people keep their property, gain property, get compensated for something that happened to them. That's how our system works. So you have an opportunity as an attorney to help people. So plus, you're down there in the trenches dealing with the facts of how things happen. And you also learn a lot about human nature. I've learned a lot about human nature and how people think and work. So
I can imagine so, because you learn about people and yourself when you're faced with adversity. Like you mentioned, with maybe trying to gain property or gain compensation. I've learned as I've gotten older, that's really how you learn how people truly are, and you learn the real people when they're faced with adversity and how they react to it. So that's cool though. The law can be a very complex thing sometimes, or at least it seems that way to me. I've been fortunate to not really have any legal trouble, but I've seen it affect other people. So props to you for helping people out with that.
yeah, it's definitely complex. And the thing about the law is when people think of the law, they think of court, right? But the law is intertwined into everything in our society. There's something legal about everything in our society. So I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be complicated. Going to court certainly is, arguing the proper statute, the proper case, the proper precedent, getting into the proper courthouse to begin with. All of, those things are complicated. That's why there's lawyers to guide people through that. But just going to the store and buying an apple, that's a legal transaction. That's not complicated. You give someone $1 and they give you an apple. But so it's really intertwined in every part of our society. So that's the other reason I like it, because when you're learning about the law and legalities, you're learning a lot about society and how contracts work, and how just common sense things.
Right. No, absolutely. So where along the lines did you decide that you wanted to get into acting?
So I mentioned I was a DJ. So I always liked the entertaining part of the world. And, law really is not. So um, I just one day was flipping through an adult education manual because I take always take adult ed classes to learn different things. And I saw a class for voiceover in there. Um, and I didn't really know what voiceover was. I just thought it was cartoons. I didn't know. So it looked interesting. I took it. I took the class, and then I realized that voiceovers are acting. So that's where it all started. I took the class. I said I'm doing this, so I just really committed to doing it. I started out in voiceover, and then things progressed from there. I started doing background work. I started doing more on camera principal parts. Started producing. So it just kind of snowballed from there. And the acting world is big too. It's like the legal world. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to take in. So there are two professions where you're learning your entire life, and that's the other thing I like about both law and acting. You're always learning.
Yeah, and I will say first of all, props to you for taking adult education classes because I was having this conversation the other day. The day you stop learning is the day you start dying, in
Right.
my opinion, because even like a lot of people like they go to high school and college and they're like, well, I'll go out and find a job and start a family and then that'll be it. But no, life's too short to just do that. Like there's so many cool things that you could do or try to do. So props to you for doing that. So were you anxious or nervous at all when you started acting?
Well, nervous in the sense of it's a new thing. So, learning lines, things like that, getting up in front of people, learning lines and SAG lines. So sure, I mean, it's a natural. I don't think anyone would say that they weren't nervous at some point doing it. So, and that's the other thing, learning how to be comfortable in your own skin. And that carries across your whole life, right? It carries through the legal world. It carries through everything. If you learn how to be comfortable and be successful in your own skin, then you're going to be able to do anything you want, really. So that's another lesson that I learned through acting. So how to become comfortable and how to become relaxed with all that, all the pressures of doing something new in front of people you don't know. So, it really, the acting classes are good just to learn about life, really.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of taking a few classes here in Northwest Florida for acting. I learned that I'm much better behind the camera than I am in front of it. But I think, you whatever you do in the film and television industry, it's good to at least have an understanding of what all goes on because then you understand, okay, well, the grips, like this is their process. The director, that's his or her process. You all have kind of a mutual understanding. So
Sure.
yeah, that I gained a lot of respect for actors after after I took those classes. There's one particular project that I wanted to talk with you about in looking at some of the things that you've done. You actually were in one of my favorite Super Bowl commercials, the Happy
Yes.
Grad. How was that experience? Because it looked so fun, with the college kid or the high school kid just going crazy for this whole commercial about the car. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, it was absolutely so much fun. The actor well, he's a comedian actually. He's acting for the commercial. The one who plays my son, he's a stand-up comedian. So he was doing his routine basically throughout the, the entire shoot day. So we had a lot of fun that day. And the whole story behind that commercial was just kind of, it just shows how things happen that you don't expect to happen. So I don't know if you want me to tell you the story.
Yeah. Go for it.
So yeah, when I first got asked to do that commercial, it was I had done an off-Broadway play with an actress who I became friendly with, and she one day she texts me and she's like, "Would you be my husband?" Like that's what the text said. And I text her back. I said, "You know I'm married, right?" And she's like, "Yes, you dummy. I'm talking about for a commercial." And so I was like, "All right, well, talk to me." So it was. She had sent me the information about the um, writer of that commercial, and it was just a spec commercial. It was supposed to be a commercial that was going into a contest, and the winner of the contest was going to go to the London Film Festival, I think it was. Um, so we showed up and we learned our parts and we did it, and we all had fun. We weren't even really expecting. We just got paid a little stipend to do it, but we did sign an agreement that if it did go further, that we'd actually get paid. That was the spec part of it. Um, and next thing we know, it was for Chevy. Chevy was the one that was running the contest. They tell us that we're taking this out of the. You lost the contest. You're not going to the London Film Fest, but we're going to put you in the Super Bowl contest. So they pulled it out. They loved it so much that they put it into that, and then people were able to vote on it. It was kind of like one of the Doritos, same kind of
Right.
idea, and we won. People voted. They liked that one the best, and so it ended up airing on the Super Bowl. So then it turned into a union spot, a SAG spot at that point, because Tim Allen did the announcing at the end, so it had to go SAG. So we all got paid really decently for that. So it turned out to be a spec that was just a stipend turned into a huge Super Bowl commercial that that you saw and that many people saw, and it's it shows up in the greatest commercials on CBS quite frequently year after year. So it keeps on giving. So
Yeah. That's a bit of a contrast when you're like, okay, well, it got pulled from this one thing, but it's going to end up playing, in one of the most valuable TV spots, arguably the most valuable TV spot, a commercial in the Super Bowl, because a lot of people, they watch the Super Bowl for the commercials. If
right,
their team's not playing or they're just, not really fans of football, but everybody has like a Super Bowl party, and you've got those that are just there for the commercials. But that's amazing that it worked out that way, and that just shows that you never know what's going to happen. What
right.
it was just a little spec thing, and I'm sure no one ever expected it to play at the Super Bowl.
Oh no, we didn't even. That wasn't even on the radar. We did it. It was just this is it's just a commercial that it may go to the London Film Festival. It may get shown there. That was, and we didn't even really know all the details when we were doing it. It just was just this is a contest commercial. We didn't really know till after the fact. The writer told us what was going on. So yeah, so it turned it out from that, and that taught me a lot of lessons as well, because sometimes actors phone it in, as they say. They don't really. They kind of they kind of give the effort depending on where the project is going, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like if they know, oh, this is just a spec commercial, no, I don't care about this. I'm not going to study my lines. I'm just going to show up and wing it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it taught me, no, you have to give 1,000% every time you go in front of the camera, because you never know where it's going to end up. And if you phoned it in, it didn't look good, that's on you. If you made yourself look bad. So yeah, you never know who's going to see your work. So that's the lesson that it taught me, that you always got to be on top of your game. You never take anything for granted. Always go through the same routine, give it the same prep as you would. No one, if it's $1 million job or a $5 job, just always give it the same prep and the same effort.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, and you hit the nail on the head. You never know who's going to see your work, and if
Right.
you treat every job as if it's like an Oscar nominated thing, an Oscar
Exactly.
nominated project, or that's going to be nominated for an Oscar. That's how everyone should look at their job, because that's how you get better. That's how you get noticed. That's how you get better opportunities.
Yeah. Even that you want, it's personal pride. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like if you're not
absolutely.
taking personal pride in your own work, then why are you doing it? I don't I don't understand. I never understand that. Like why if you're only gonna half-ass it for lack of a better term, like why are you doing it at all? Just say no. Say no. You don't want to do the job.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So, do you have a particular favorite role that you've done in your acting career?
That was one of my favorites. But I've been getting one of the reasons why I got into producing is because I was able to start picking some of my parts that I wanted to do. So I was able to get a couple of more deeper emotional parts to play. So one, I played an agoraphobic, which was a tough thing to do. One, I played a grieving father, and one, I play a depressive father that has a depressive daughter. So, all the ones where there's lots of relationship behind the story, those are the roles I like the most. Because they're challenging. They're challenging roles, and you know one of the reasons I like acting is because you're creating relationships with people that are not your relatives. They're just people that you meet, and you may mess with them or you may not, but you still have to be professional and make it look like this is the greatest person that you love the most in the world, but you may hate them off camera. You know what I mean? So that's another reason I love acting because it's really about you. It's really not about the other people. It's really just about you and how you approach I mean, obviously you're working with other people, so you can't be a loner, but how you prep and how you react is it's a personal thing. So for me anyway.
Yeah, and I think also too, it's about creating that human connection. Because we all have our own experiences, and like you mentioned, playing like the more deeper, more dramatic roles, you kind of get to put yourself in that situation. Or I've heard of other techniques where you kind of draw from a traumatic experience or a bad experience, and you convey that in the performance. It's about making that human connection to me, and that is why I think an actor's job is so important. And yeah, it is about you. I totally agree with that, but I think in through doing that, you can resonate with people, whether it's
Absolutely.
if they're watching it or on set.
Well, the way I look at that, obviously you have to make a connection with the audience, the people that are watching, but you can't. So I've learned this a long time ago. You can't think of that because that's where you're trying to impress them instead of expressing the writing. So you have to make the relationship with the people that are around you on screen. And if you get that connection, then the audience is going to have the connection with you. So you can't really think about it that way because it's too big. It's too big. Like you
Right.
can't wrap your mind around it. It's too grandiose, and that's where the nervousness would come in if you're approaching it that way because that it causes great pressure. So I simplify. I try to simplify things as much as I can. If I can create the relationship with my scene partner, that's what I need to do, and then the audience they're gonna feel that they'll be able to
Right.
see that relationship that's
It's going to
built. So
resonate through the screen.
exactly, exactly, yeah. And I can have just a quick point about that because one of the short films I did when I was a grieving father, two daughters were in the film. One of them was on my side, one of them was rebelling. Right, so that was the dynamic. So we screened the film at a bunch of film festivals and won a bunch of awards. And I remember after one of the festivals in particular, someone had come up to me and she had been crying and she said that she asked, like, are those your real daughters? So that made me feel really good. The fact that she didn't know that we were just actors and, it wasn't a real family. So and that's what I want any piece of acting or any piece of work, even if I'm producing, that's that's what we're trying to convey. So even if it's not me doing the acting, if I'm producing, helping with the casting, like that's the chemistry we want. Because like you said, it's going to resonate through the screen.
Yeah, you've done something well if you have somebody come up and say, "Is that your real family?"
Right.
That's incredible.
Yep. And then someone also asked when I did the film when I was playing an agoraphobic. Someone also asked that in a comment on YouTube, like, "Are you agoraphobic?" They asked. So that made me feel good too.
Absolutely. So where does the because I know you practice entertainment law as well. So where did that come in? Did that come in like after you became an actor?
Some of it did. I started out way back when I first started practicing doing music. So I'd represent musicians, bands, single acts, helping them with their publishing contracts, helping them, with studio or recording contracts that came in. So that's how I started doing entertainment law, and then it shifted. So yeah, I still do music, but now I do a lot. Like the majority of what I do is film, a little TV, but mostly it's independent film. I represent many independent filmmakers. So, and then sometimes what happens is as I'm representing them, they want me to get more involved with the project. So sometimes that's how I become producer, because I kind of shift over. I shift my role. So that's how I started producing. That was, the first film I ever produced. It was a associate producer role, and they asked me, to get more involved rather than just reviewing contracts. They wanted me to get more involved with the nuts and bolts. So that's how I started, and I liked it. I really, I liked, again, something new to learn, a new universe. So I like doing more than just the legal on a film, but I'll take whatever role, any role that the head producers, executive producers want me to take on. So sometimes they only want me to do like one little thing legally. Fine. Other times they want me to do more. So I don't have an ego that way. Like whatever they want me to do, it's their project. I'll do it within reason, of course.
Yeah. And no matter how big or small of a role you might have, you're still participating. You
Right.
still might learn something new. So, you're getting to be a part of a project, and
Right.
that's special.
And it's about the project always. Like for me, it's always about the project. So it's what the project needs, not what I need. It's what the project needs. So the project needs me to review these I-9s and W-4s and, send it to the state labor department. Okay, I'll do it. No big deal. No, and then other ones, no, we need you to do the whole thing. We want you to take it from beginning to end and, do the investment papers all the way through distribution. Okay. It really just depends on what the filmmakers need and what the project needs.
Talk to me a little bit about entertainment law, and I know it can be kind of a broad term. It's something that I don't really know a lot about. I know you said you've represented musicians and independent filmmakers. I'm assuming that a lot of it has to do with, maybe licensing and rights to projects. What all does it entail?
It could be that it goes. So entertainment law is basically drafting contracts, reviewing contracts, getting trademarks and copyrights, taxes, um, investment, drafting it and reviewing investment papers, distribution papers. It's the legal side is anything a lawyer that you think of would do. That's what an entertainment lawyer is doing, but it's about entertainment. That's the subject. So it's about film, it's about TV, it's about music, it's about anything entertainment wise. So there's many things that an entertainment lawyer can do. And there some entertainment lawyers only do one little thing. They just do the investment papers. Say, like the private placement memorandums, that says what the investment, if you're going to invest, someone's going to invest in a film, it has all the risks, the huge pages of risks say that you're going to lose your money. So this is how we're going to try to make it back for you, So lawyers write those. And then there's other lawyers that, maybe they'll just do distribution contracts. So they'll review distribution. They'll try to get distribution deals and just they're masters at that, so, and anything in between, really. So, but there's just the legal part that you could be just doing the legal part. So you're just reviewing docs and drafting docs or getting licenses, maybe, like you need someone comes in and they want a song to be put into the film, and then so the attorney would write to try to get the clearances for the song. Or a script comes in and the attorney would have to copyright the script and protect it to make sure it's not stolen, right? Or we have this big project, we have this script, what do we do? So maybe the attorney would set up the LLC, limited liability company, for it to put all of it in, right? So the attorney can be an advisor in that sense to help the filmmaker figure out the best thing to do for the project, but it's all the legal stuff. It's not none of the stuff where you're casting, where you're picking the actors, you're picking the material, like locations. Yeah, none of that that's not the legal side. Doing the location agreement, once the producers pick their location and then they say, hey, we got this place, doing the agreement to get the location to sign off on, that would be the legal. That was where legal would come in. So there is a distinction between what producers do and what legal do. Some producers do it all. Some producers have their own talent releases and location releases, and they do it. They just send it out. But that's not a smart thing, in my opinion, to do. You should have even if you pay the attorney a small percentage of the budget, you should have them do that for you. So you pick the location. Hey, I got this location. And then the attorney takes it from there and they get the paperwork signed. Or same thing with talent. Hey, we got this great talent as our lead. Okay, here's the talent release and here's the contract. Have them sign it. It's much better. It's much cleaner, in my opinion, to have an attorney involved, because then if you're trying to sell the movie at the end, all that documentation the distributor is going to ask for, and then they're scrambling, and then that's usually the time I get the call. Oh, they asked me for chain of title. What do I do? They give me a whole list of docs I need. What do I do? And then it's much harder at that point to get all that stuff than if you just do it along the way. So if you just hire, a lot of times, even if it's on a consult basis where you're just paying the lawyer a couple $100 and for a consult here and there, if you have a lawyer that you can talk to along the way, it's gonna help tremendously. So, or what you could do, what other filmmakers do, is they have lawyers that are producers, because then that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of lawyers that are producers, because they're there to guide the other producers on the legal steps. It is very necessary, unfortunately, but it is very necessary.
Well, no, and a lot of, newer filmmakers, those that are just kind of getting into it, they don't realize that there's a lot that goes into it, not just from the creative side, but then you have the producing side, and then now you could even throw the legal side in it as well. There's a whole, it's like a big tree. There's different branches that come off of the main body of the tree. Yep. And that's the purpose of this podcast, is that, like, I'm learning about different sides of the industry, and the listeners, who are, the majority of them are aspiring filmmakers or established ones, to learn more. So this has been really insightful. And I think that's super important, is to have all that, get the documentation as you go along. That way, whenever it's asked for, you just be like, all right, here you go. It's a lot easier.
That's what it should be. It's just being a little binder. Here you go. Print it out. I keep it in Dropbox. Print them out. There you go. Or sometimes the distributors don't even want the paper. They're fine with just send the link to the Dropbox, and you're all set. So, and then, I'll back up a little bit, because sometimes filmmakers, their goal is not necessarily to sell the film. Sometimes they're just doing it for festivals. Sometimes they're just doing it for experimental, see what their cameras can do kind of thing. So, but even short films these days can be sold. So filmmakers need to keep that in mind. There's a lot more sales of short films that I've seen going on. So I wouldn't write off the fact that I'm never going to sell this film. I would never approach a film like that. I would, unless it's pure, a student film or something like that. But even student films I've seen get sold. So it's really hard to, like we were talking about before, it's hard to figure out where your work's going to end up. So I would always keep it open, not kind of If you don't get any of the legal documents because you don't think you're going to sell your film, well, then you're not going to sell it. So, but if you get the legal documents, there's always a possibility that it could go somewhere.
Well, it doesn't hurt too, because to get it done on a short film is probably much easier than a feature film. So if you do it for your shorts and then you eventually graduate to doing a feature film, you already have an idea of what to do. You're not just kind of going in from scratch. That's why I encourage people to work on short films. It's a great way to learn.
Yes, it's a great way to figure out if you do all the business, the artistic on a short, and then do the same thing that you did, the same technique and the same procedure, and apply it to a feature. The feature is going to be so much easier than if you didn't do it. Because one of the things I hear from filmmakers is, oh man, features, they're so complicated. There's so much work involved. And it's true. But if you learn on a 10-minute or 20-minute short, it's the same procedure. It's just more of it. So if you put those procedures in place and do the same thing and use the short as a practice run for the feature, then it's not going to seem as daunting that if you're just jumping in the feature and doing all that stuff without, having prior experience at it. So,
No, absolutely. So as we start to wrap up here, what's next for you? Do you have any acting projects in the works?
I do. I have a couple of horror films that are in the can. I'm
Nice.
going down to North Carolina in a couple of weeks to finish up some pickups on a Kevin Sorbo project.
Okay, cool.
So
Cool.
that's the next one's in a couple of weeks. So we'll see. We'll see. And I've got like 3 or 4 that are in the works. I've always got things in the works, whether I end up acting in them or just do the legal on them or just produce. I never know. And that's actually the surprise of it is something that I like. You know what I mean? If it's if it's a project I'm working on and there's a role that the producers say that I'll be good for, great. I'll audition for it, and sometimes they'll just give them to me, and then that I don't expect that. You know what I mean? It's that's what I'm saying. Like the surprise keeps you on your toes, and that keeps your interest. So because it's not just doing one. Like I couldn't do just one thing over and over and over again. I would get way too bored doing that. Even though I would be a specialist at something, it would just be too boring. Like I there's just too much that I like in the film world. So I that's where I jump around and I like it.
Well, that's part of the what makes it so exciting is you never know what tomorrow is going to bring you. Even if you're on like a set for 2 weeks, it's the chances are day two is going to be completely different from day one. Day three is going to be different from day two. You never know what it's going to bring you. And then once you're done with that project, you never know what's going to happen. So, no, I agree with you. That it makes it exciting and makes it enjoyable.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen from take to take, not just day to day. Like
Ain't
you know what
that
I
the
mean?
truth?
Like, take to take, things can change, and they should really. You shouldn't be doing the same
Yeah,
thing over and over again from take to take.
yeah, absolutely. Do you have a website or social media that you like to plug so the listeners can follow you?
Sure. Yeah. My law one is Rob Sigesq Rob Sig Esquire.com. And my acting one is my acting name is Paglia, so it's robertpaglia.com.
Fantastic. And I'll include links to all those in the show notes as well, so people can just click and they'll be able to follow you.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Robert, thank you so much for having this chat with me. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.